Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And the reason why I usually hesitate to talk about most of the topics that I have to talk about nowadays is that despite the fact that they are trending or they're getting viral, the truth is I have actually talked about all of these topics years ago. You know, these are some of the topics that I touched on multiple times. Be it about trends, be it about health, be it about weight gain, weight loss, be it about social media, be it about, you know, society at large, be it about moral values, be it about regression, about degradation, everything and anything under the sun, seriously, is something about especially moral and social issues. So that's why I usually hesitate because I've done so many dedicated podcasts on all of these subjects in so many ways, and I've touched upon them so many times. So it's a bit funny when I see that the things that I've talked about years ago are now things that other podcasters and bloggers are now suddenly talking about as if they're in vogue. The truth is, these things are not in vogue today. They were always in vogue. They were always there. They were always at the forefront and at the background simultaneously. This is something that we've been dealing with through time. So we're talking about the whole skinny phenomena, right? I thought I was the only one who felt that everybody's looking like a skeleton, but obviously now everybody's talking about how everybody looks like a skeleton. The reason why I didn't have much to say about it is because, as somebody who has a very fast metabolism myself, and as somebody who has been dealing with depression, and in my case, depression does not mean gaining weight, which is usually what you hear from women, especially, even men. But from women, especially in the subcontinent, when you listen to women of how they've gained so much weight and this and that, it's because they're like, oh, when we're depressed, we eat a lot. In my case, it's the opposite. When I'm depressed, I starve. And not even, you can't even call it starve in the sense as in, it's starve as in practically speaking, as in I don't eat. But literally, it's basically that I can't eat. When you're depressed, two things. Obviously, everybody deals with everything in two different extremes. So, as I said, one extreme is having an eating disorder in the sense that you eat too much, and another extreme is having an eating disorder in which you eat nothing. So I already have a fast metabolism. It took me years, decades to gain weight. I was always a size 0. I was, medically speaking, naturally underweight. I'm calling it naturally because this is where I need to, once again, although I've as I said, I've made this very clear in even one of my more recent podcasts, but I'll do it again. So I was underweight, medically speaking, always. I was a size 0. Actually, I was probably less than a size 0, who knows. But anyway, and that has been my constant. I knew literally that every decade I would have increased 10 kgs. Yeah, literally. It's like a kg per year. So 10 years equaled 10 kgs. So I knew how steadily my weight grew. And I was very happy when I hit 30s because I was like, okay, now I'm in my 30s. Now, technically, I should be gaining weight. I should be becoming a size 1. I could be wearing a size, what in UK size 8 now, which was, or a which was something that I always anyway wore because I like very, very loose clothes. That's another thing that I hear a lot of vloggers now talk about: loose clothes. We like wearing loose clothes. Yeah, I've always worn loose clothes anyway, so who cares? But yeah, but when it came to that point when my clothes no longer fit me, and that's when I started thinking that, okay, to others I may look like I've got the perfect figure now, but as in, with curves and all, but always had curves, but before I was too thin, but now I'm visibly, uh, you know, um, according to whatever our desi culture believes is a good figure. So, but my clothes wouldn't fit me. And so that's when I started thinking that, okay, I need to lose weight. So here's the point that I'm trying to make, and which I said I made even recently. And that is, first you've got the body mass ratio index, right? That is the medical point of view as to how much you need to weigh as per your age and as per your body height, structure, everything. But then there's another thing, which is your own natural body weight, which is subject. Really, it is subjective. Okay, it is subject to individuals. The general medical weight based on body mass index is just a way to sort of calculate and find out what generally is supposed to be a good ratio. Okay, what is supposed to be an ideal weight, for example, of a person. But that does not mean that every single person falls into that category. As I said before, if anybody heard my recent podcast even, your own weight is subject to how you feel, how your body feels, physically as well as mentally, because yes, it does affect you mentally as well. When you feel lethargic, when you feel lazy, when you feel exhausted constantly, and you are above your normal weight, then yes, you can think about how maybe your weight is contributing to these factors. Biggest factor is when you feel stuffed and it's difficult to breathe, or when you feel that it's difficult to stand up or bend down easily. Again, that is when you are overweight, as in when you're a little over your own regular weight that you're constantly, that you constantly are in a habit of, right? Because every single one of us, our bodies, they have their own weight requirement. They have their own limits. You understand? That is why there's so many people who grow really big and they gain a lot of weight, but they're still comfortable. So that means that their body is okay. But then there are people who, even if they gain just a few kilograms in weight, they start feeling uncomfortable. That means that your body's discomfort is telling you that that you need to lose some weight. You need to see how you feel. You don't have to care about looking good. You don't need to care. Listen, everybody wants to look good. And to be honest, in Islam, because our bodies do not belong to us, we've basically rented our bodies, right? Our souls have rented these bodies. These bodies are given to us by God. And these bodies are going to talk against us in front of God, by the way. They're going to bear witness against us. Our hands are going to tell God what we did with them. Our mouths are going to tell God what we did with them. Our lips are going to tell God what we did with them. Our feet are going to tell God what we did with them. Our whole body, our hair, every part of our body is going to speak up and speak out. Okay? That in itself should just be a good reminder that we do not own our bodies. We have rented them for as long as we're here on earth. And the minute we leave, our bodies are going to go back to where, because as God said, He promised the soil, He promised the earth that from wherever He has taken a portion to make our bodies, that will be returned exactly to that place. And this is why we believe that we get buried in the exact same place from where the soil was taken to make our bodies. And this is how it is. So, yeah, I mean, that's another debate or argument, that those people who don't bury their bodies, what about them? Those who burn their bodies and cremate them and turn them to ashes, what about them? I also wonder about that too. But anyway, point being that we're made of dust. We have to return back to dust. And God has promised the soil that every single particle will be returned back to it. So this has been established that as Muslims, we believe that our bodies are not ours, so we have to take extra good care. And that is also why actually tattooing is not allowed in Islam. Tattooing is marking. You cannot even tattoo an animal, by the way. In Islam, you're not even allowed to mark an animal. You're not even allowed to tattoo an animal, not even for identification purposes. No, you're actually not allowed to do that. So here we are. Point being, now that we've established that our bodies aren't really ours and that we have to take good care of our bodies, then you understand the other next thing that I'm going to say, where in Islam, having a healthy body and a healthy mind is a requirement. Okay? In Islam, mental health is very, very important. I know people may not have talked about it, but the truth is, in Islam and medieval scholars, they worked on psychology. The same psychology that now people think that, oh, it's the Western people who have, the Western people discovered it. And a lot of it they got from the ancient Muslim texts, believe it or not. Even many of the terms have been literally transliterated or translated from the original texts. So, like many things that the modern world enjoys, psychology is one of those that was worked on by medieval Islamic scholars and doctors. So psychology is an extremely important thing. The Prophet, peace be upon him, himself has always addressed, actually, in case you didn't know that, he has addressed mental stress, he has addressed mental health, he has addressed psychology. And when you understand all of that, then you again come to the next step. As in, why? As you know, because as God says, I do not need an unhealthy mind to pray to me, In other words, get your shit together. Simple as. And again, we always say that, to lose faith is a sin. In Christianity, in Judaism, in Islam, in all the monotheistic religions, it's an established, alleged fact. I'll put it alleged, I'll tell you why. That, losing faith is a sin. Losing faith is a sin, yes, but you need to understand the context where it becomes a sin. Because the truth is, even prophets lost faith. Why do we listen to the story of Hazrat Yunus and the whale? Why? It's because when he was in the belly of the whale, and even before that actually, he was beginning to lose faith. He was getting disappointed. He was losing hope. Okay? And he cried out to God, that what are you doing and why are you doing this seriously? So, but the difference is that God reached out to his prophets when they were shook. He reached out to them when they began questioning their faith, when they questioned him, to be honest. But we're not prophets and saints. We're normal people. So God does not reach out to us, right? He lets us squander in that hopelessness. And then people come and say, losing faith is a sin. No, you need to understand the context. If prophets could lose faith, even though many of them actually saw God, they heard him, they talked to him, but they still lost faith at one point in life, and he himself personally picked them up. We don't have anybody to pick us up. That's the difference. So now when you've understood this as well, then we come to the next point. We are obliged to take care of our bodies because our bodies will testify against us if we didn't take well care of them, okay? If we didn't take good care of them, because this is an obligation that we have towards our bodies. And that is where again health comes in. That is again where weight comes in. As the Prophet said, peace be upon him, that we are what we eat. Yeah, I know there's so many philosophers who try to make it as if it's there. I think it's just common sense, so it's understandable that we all automatically understand this, that we are really literally what we eat. But I guess when a prophet says that, it sort of gives it more credence, isn't it? There's more credibility then. It is true, we are what we eat. And that is why we have to eat certain things in animals, and we're not allowed to eat certain things in animals, right? And that's also again based on those animals' diet, because as the Prophet explained, that a cow is a humble creature. And it's a humble creature because it feeds on grass. It's a herbivore. You see? Poultry are essentially herbivores, so we can eat them. The fact that when you start feeding chickens, the kind of feed that the Western world, with the broiler industry brought about, where God forbid, I mean, seriously, it's really bad and vile when you think of what they're feeding their chickens, because they're feeding them blood and they're feeding them their own dead chicks and God knows what. So that automatically renders the chickens haram, because that's again, in Islam, what you eat is so important, that what you feed, what you eat is also important, and that is what also makes it halal and haram. Halal and haram is not just in the sacrificing of the animal, it's not just the way you slaughter the animal, it's not just that. No, it's how you've kept the animal. So when you people like talk, when the Western people, they have a problem with animal rights movements, actually you've noticed that Muslims have no problems with those, because actually in Islam, it goes without saying, you're not even supposed to fight about these things. But unfortunately, as I said, the Western world has brought a lot of this into our countries as well, and many people tend to dismiss this. But that is again why I actually like KNNs, because despite the fact that I actually didn't like their processed, I mean, we'll say allegedly processed meat, is because I also used to feel that, but then they also because one of them, I think it was BB chicken, sorry, it was BB John chicken, I think. He was a client of my dad's, and once he explained to my dad that actually when we write halal on our boxes, KNNs and us, when we companies, when we write halal, we're telling you two things. One, that the meat is real, it's not 100%, it's not processed. We may process them into nuggets, and we may, in other words, we turn them into edible foods. Yeah, that may be the processing that we do, but the meat itself is 100% authentic, and we are halal because what we feed our chickens is halal. We feed them grains only. We don't feed them that kind of stuff that the commercial people feed their chickens abroad, or even some here. We are 100% halal in how we treat our chickens, how we feed them, how we slaughter them, and then how we process them. That is why when we write halal on our boxes, this is what we're saying. And it's true, because if you look in their boxes, you will see those 2 to 3 tiny icons that they have a tick against. So yes, and that actually reassured me so much, because to be honest, in the beginning I was like, I don't know. So yes, in Islam, how you treat your animals, how you keep them, you're not supposed to keep your chickens cooped in a cage like that, like how. And this is why you will see a lot of us people, we feel a lot of discomfort when we go to those small butchers, and they have cooped up all their chickens in one cage, and in front of those chickens they keep on bringing out the other chickens to slaughter them, because that too renders it haram. Yes, that too renders that slaughter void. In Islam, you're not supposed to kill an animal in front of its other animals, and especially not in front of its kin. And why is it that when we sacrifice animals on Eid, why is it that you think that we always try to keep the animals away from the others, and we do not allow them to see them? And those butchers who disregard that, I'm sorry, but you are violating a huge part of sacrifice, and you can actually cause you can actually cause a religious dilemma to the people who are, who are hiring you to complete the sacrifice for them, as in to slaughter the goats for them or to slaughter their animals for them, because this is a huge condition that renders your sacrifice valid or void. It can go either way. So you have to be very careful. The animal must not see its kin. It must not be killed in front of its kin or other animals. And we always have to pet it and very nicely try to calm it down. And there is a reason why we immediately hit the vein, the jugular vein. Okay? Because that makes it instant. Now, people would argue it's not instant because you still see the body moving. Yeah, you see the body moving, but the death has occurred. You understand? It's sure shot, it's painless, and it has occurred. That movement is part of rigor mortis that you are literally witnessing. Okay? So, yeah. We have to kill animals mercifully. We have to treat them mercifully. We cannot kill them in front of other animals. We are not allowed to produce fear amongst other animals. So all these factors are brought in that makes it halal or haram accordingly. They should not be old animals. They should not be young, very young babies. They should not be females, preferably not be females. They should be young adult males in full, fine health, in perfect condition. So that is how it is, okay? So point being, again, we are what we eat. And this is how we have to make sure that what we eat are also they're fed what they need to be fed. If they're herbivores, they should be herbivores, because so when we eat humble animals, in other words, we tend to adapt the trait of those humble animals. So if you're feeding chicken blood and dead chicks, is that chicken going to be is that chicken going to be a herbivore, number one, and is that chicken going to be humble, number two? So you're feeding an animal blood and dead animals, and then you're going to feed on that animal. So what trait is going to come into you? Yes, it is exactly as that. We literally are what we eat. We become what we eat. That's also one of the reasons we cannot eat pigs. And the reason why animals that are herbivores but are used for riding cannot be eaten. Camels and donkeys and horses, it's not like they're haram. Now, here's the thing. They're not haram. If in a state of an urgency or if you've got nothing else, yes, you can. But because they are basically riders, they're for riding purposes, they're transport purposes, and, so they're more of your companions. Their category is placed there. So that is why they come under the makruh category. So you can't eat them generally, as in you're not encouraged to eat them, right? So again, that is how I'm trying to basically explain how it is that everything around us in this world affects us. The air, what we eat, what we are surrounding ourselves with, every single thing affects us. Climates affect us. Climate changes affect us. Weather affects us. As I said, the very air affects us. Every little thing in this world is connected to each other, and then they at the end come and connect with us. And that is why we are the only creature that ends up destroying this whole earth without even realizing we're destroying ourselves. Okay? Every other creature on this earth, they know exactly where they're positioned, and they know exactly their connection, and they know to live in harmony. But we are going around making either bees extinct, and no bees means no life on earth. We're going around making other animals extinct, thinking that, it doesn't matter. How many animals have become extinct from when we were kids in the 80s till date? Then in 30 years we've lost so many more animals that now will become fantasy and fiction. They will now be categorized together with, as fantasy or fantastical mythical animals, like with dragons and everything else, because nobody will have seen them. Our kids can see them in the zoo now, and who knows how long those poor things will last, and how many more kids they will give, and how anybody will be able to work on their generation or regeneration, because the world ain't helping. And the way we are destroying the environment, that isn't helping, that isn't conducive to the survival of these animals anymore. Okay, so now that we've established all of that, I think it's becoming easier and easier to understand why it is important in Islam for us to live healthy lives. Physical health is connected to our mental health, number one. And our mental health is also connected to our physical health. So if we are physically out of whack, chances are we'll mentally get very soon disturbed. And if we're mentally out of whack, obviously we're going to get disturbed physically. And the main culprit is obviously your digestion. Now, people go on and on about dieting and about good fat and bad fat. Well, thankfully, people have realized there's good fat and bad fat. Before, it was all fat. And now people are all about high protein diet and this and that. Listen, you have to have a complete nutritional value diet, which means you have to have your proteins, you have to have your fats, you have to have your minerals, you have to have your vitamins, you have to have your magnesium, calcium, you have to have all of this, zinc, okay? You have to have everything in your diet. You have to have your carbohydrates, you have to have everything, and it must be a balanced diet because your body requires every single one of those things. There is a reason why you lose weight when you go on a only protein diet or a keto diet or an only fat diet. Yes, do that even, and you will still get thin. Even if you have a carbohydrate only diet, you will still get thin. And that is because in order to supplement the loss of all the other essentials, your body then burns whatever it has to redistribute it. So if all your body has is fat, it will have to burn all of that. And if all your body has is protein, it will have to burn all of that. While at the same time, it is obviously removing from your storage, from your internal storage, deposits of whatever it is that your body is losing. So it is filling that up. So first, your body will reach out for what you're currently eating. Then when your body finds that it's missing what it needs, then your body will go and start removing from the storage, from its internal storage. And that is how you get thin, basically. Okay? I'm just putting it out there very simply. So here we are. You need to find out what is your body's comfort level. As long as your body and your mind are comfortable, if you can breathe well especially, then you are in an okay place weight-wise. The minute you start feeling uncomfortable within your skin, regardless of whatever anybody says, that is when you know that, okay, your body is feeling overweight and your body needs to lose weight. And then that's where you go on your journey of losing weight. And as I said, you have to do it in a healthy way. This whole TikTok social media thing that comes up where for superficial reasons people are dieting. Although, to be honest, people were always dieting for superficial reasons. But I mean, it's too much now. It's all superficial. You need to stop that. Because as I said, every single person has his or her own body mass index or ratio that they have to adhere to, which doesn't even always match the medical ideal body mass index, to be honest. Right? So when I gained weight to the point where my clothes weren't fitting, and to the point where I was feeling lethargic, to the point where I was feeling exhausted, and I was mentally already in a bad place anyway, so it was just spiraling. And then when I fell into peak of depression and I lost all that weight in literally less than a week, and then some, so I went back to my completely zero minus weight, I lost even more than I should have. So I was once again active. I felt active. I felt healthy. I could breathe. I was, and to everybody else, I was like, oh, you've become so skinny again. I'm like, no, I just went back to my old weight. This is the weight my body is comfortable in. This is the weight my bones feel comfortable in. So this is better. So, and at that point, I noticed so many other people rapidly losing weight, and I thought, oh, okay. Although there were rumors circulating about Ozempic and everything, and I was thinking, okay, Ozempic, which is very dangerous if a non-diabetic person takes it, and that is what you're seeing, the after effects, where you become a skeleton, where your face completely, gets a bit too snatched. Your temples are protruding and everything. You literally look sick. You look as if, those pictures that people used to show of famine in Somalia and Ethiopia? Yeah, you're looking like that. And that's not nice. You're either insulting those people who are really, really going through famine and hunger and who have become skeletons, you're insulting them, or you're just being a prick. Seriously. Sorry. So, point being, I thought I was the only one who thought people were looking sick. But the reason I didn't say anything is because I was like, hell, I look sick and I lost my weight because of depression. I don't know what other people are doing. And it's not necessary that everybody is having a liposuction. Liposuction doesn't suck your face in, and it's not necessary that everybody's having Ozempic, because not everybody's going to have Ozempic. So people are doing things, but people are rapidly losing weight, but not in a good way. Now, I'm glad that people are showing concern. That shows that people are still in a good state of mind and they still are healthy, mentally speaking, when they're noticing that Hollywood and Bollywood and even in Pakistan and other industries, people are literally becoming to look like skeletons. And that's not good. It really is not good, actually, because the whole point is to look healthy and beautiful. The point is not to be skinny, you see. The point, and there's again the oxymoronic value here that you see. Before, women were pestered for being too skinny. Everybody wanted voluptuous women. Oh, you're only a woman if you have curves. Especially in our countries, people were always after women who were so thin, saying that, oh, you're not a woman. And then you get a few people with an eye for the camera and everything. You have people in the media industry, and they realize that you actually look as if you've added a few pounds on you when you're in front of the camera. And they realize that those skinny girls actually look perfect on camera. And so skinny becomes the norm. And now everybody wants to look like those skinny girls. And I was one of those skinny girls who everybody wanted to look like. When I was in college, I remembered how so many very thin girls would come to me and say, oh, how are you so skinny? And I'm like, excuse me? And after hearing so many people complain about how skinny I was, to find people now suddenly seeking me out in order to ask me what the secret was to be a zero size. I can tell you that was an eye-opener. And as a teenager, so I was like, okay, why does everybody want to be so skinny? You're already pretty freaking thin yourselves. And they're like, no, we're not as thin as you are. And I'm like, this is natural, for crying out loud. If I could, I would probably want to be like you. So these are the things that we then, we sort of go through in our lives when we see kind of people talking about these things and people giving importance to these things, that, oh, you're so skinny and this and that, which I could never understand. But obviously later I did understand. And then anyway, I also worked in the media, and so I know. I worked in the media behind the scenes, by the way, not in front of the camera. So I was behind the camera. So, yeah. I understood the importance of maintaining a skinny, fragile figure for the camera, but I do not understand why now it had to be to this point that girls would become bulimic, they would become anorexic. That's not healthy. It's not healthy in any way. And I think in our cinemas, as in India Pakistan cinemas, in the beginning, actually, once again, they celebrated voluptuous women. So skinny, the trend of having skinny girls came much later, much later. But it's there. And then it makes you think again that where is it that we stand today when everybody is always changing the reason why they want to look the way they want to look. And I'm saying changing the reason because, as I said, originally, the intent of maintaining a skinny frame was purely for camera. Because on camera, you always look wider and you look bigger than you really are. In real life, those girls who had the perfect figure on the camera, for some reason, they looked as if they added a few pounds. But I'm thinking cameras are becoming much better now, where you actually do not look, you do not look more than you really are. I think nowadays cameras are better at picking the actual frame. So I think girls need to stop if that's the reason. Now, coming into the point where girls want to be extra skinny, and even guys, to be honest, especially when you look at for guys, when you look at Thailand or when you look at Korea or when you look at Japan, you get very disturbed when you see guys with really skinny chicken legs, okay? Sorry. Excuse me. You're like, why on earth are guys with legs that are thinner than girls? Like, what's going on there? Guys are supposed to be, in good health at least. Their problem is that they have to always look as if they have a six-pack. I get that. But why aren't they working on their legs? I don't get that. Because I think having a very skinny frame, especially, and even if you don't have a skinny frame, having very skinny legs that are literally thinner than a girl's legs, I think that is a bit disturbing in a man who is supposed to be physically much more fit and stronger, and who needs all that strength, is all I'm saying. So, yeah, guys have their own problems in the media industry. Girls have their own problems. But again, as I said, that is the media industry. There are requirements in the media industry that some people go too far to fulfill, and some people go a little easier on themselves to fulfill. But they need to stop making it a disaster health-wise. And another thing, I don't know whoever came up with this idea of becoming so thin, because I'm sorry, but not only are people becoming too thin using whatever means it is that they're using, but as I said, their faces are losing the beauty. They literally are losing their beauty, and they actually look old. That was my biggest concern. I was like, why is everybody looking so old and haggard? What's wrong here? Even older actresses that actually looked very nice with such fresh faces, now they looked as if their skin is going to fall off their cheeks. So as I said, that's overkill. They need to stop doing that. That is unhealthy. It not only looks unhealthy, it looks bad. They're literally destroying their natural beauty. It's one thing to try to be thin, but it's another thing to literally look as if your skin is falling off of your bones. Seriously, you do not look beautiful is what I'm saying. I'm sorry, but such beautiful women, and now they look old and they look haggard and they look weird. So please stop just hopping onto any trend. Look at your features, look at your bones, look at your face cut, look at your contours, look at your own bodies and see what is it that your bodies look their best in, what weight it is, what body mass index suits your body, what are you comfortable in. That's what you need to see. Take it from a size 0, okay? You are naturally beautiful the way you are. You are the way God has made you. You don't need to do too much work on decreasing or increasing your weight. You just have to be doing enough that you feel beautiful, that your body feels happy and healthy. Okay? Overweight is definitely a medical cause, or I should say it's a medical cause of concern, because obesity hides a lot of other symptoms or problems that are going on. It could be a gut issue, it could be an organ issue, it can be an insulin issue, it could be anything. So yes, there is a truth behind, obesity. But try to look for healthier ways to become healthy. Don't be anorexic or bulimic, and don't be obese, okay? It's easier said than done where it comes to obesity. It's easier to actually become drastically thin, as we are all seeing now, which is again very dangerous. It's difficult to lose weight from being, it's difficult to stop yourself from, reaching a certain weight once you've already started gaining. I also understand that. All I'm saying is forget what everybody is saying. You sit down and try to see what makes your body, what makes your skeleton, what makes your joints happy, okay? What makes your mind happy? What is that weight at which your body feels its perfect self? Strive for that weight. That is your healthy weight, okay? And do it normally, gradually, slowly. Take all the time you need. Don't start thinking that, oh, I can't eat this. Don't torture yourself on food. Don't torture yourself on anything else. Actually, the main way, the most important and the simplest way is matching your diet to your lifestyle. Okay? Our diets should match our lifestyle. People who have had very strenuous lifestyles or very, very physically active lifestyles, it doesn't matter what they eat because it gets burnt. It literally, their body burns all of that in their everyday movement. When we have a slower lifestyle, our body will actually burn calories at a slower rate, obviously. So your diet should just match your lifestyle. Once you start that, you'll be okay. It's not about cutting your carbs or cutting your fat or cutting. You have to have a fully balanced diet with a complete nutritional value. Okay? Just see what suits you throughout the day, keeping in mind how slow or fast your life is. Just portion your diet accordingly, and you'll be okay. Don't run after trends, and especially not this weird-ass skinny trend that looks as if people are getting the life sucked out of them. They look old, they look weird, and it looks as if their skin's falling off, okay? That's not healthy. This is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.